Hello, welcome to Inside the Birds Postgame Live. Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan with Eagles Hall of Famer Trey Thomas. Fellas, what's that expression? The objects in the rearview window are closer than they appear, because on paper, this game should not have been close, but the Bears made it that way. They mucked it up. Eagles struggled at the start, pulled it out at the end, but they win 25-20. That's all that matters. The Eagles have won. They have won now their, I believe, fifth straight game since that loss against Washington. Cruising, Dallas loses. Trey, your big picture view of this game. We know it was ugly, but do you just look at it and say a W is a W here?
Well, you know what? You go back and you look at everybody else outside of that locker room felt like this game was going to be a cakewalk. But everybody in that locker room kept saying, look, this is going to be a dog fight. We're going to be in something where we're going to have to gut it out. And here you are, Jalen Hurts. You know, everybody's looking at what the DN is talking about out of Dallas. You know, hey, let's see what he's talking about, what's his name? Parsons? Yeah. So, everybody's talking about what he's mentioning, and Jalen Hurts is like, look, no, I got to get ready for Chicago. We have to stay focused on the task at hand. And here you are. You find yourself in a dogfight against a team that gave you everything that you were looking for. Is that my sound?
That might have been a little bit. It's all right. It sounds like it's cleaned up. Adam, let me ask you this to talk about Trey's point about the team being, locked in there despite what the outside said. When you look at this game, it reminded me a little bit of some of the Jacksonville game, Arizona game, where it was a close game. There was some ugliness, but I don't think at any point, even the Miles Sanders fumble in the third quarter, right? They're only up 4 at the time. I don't really think that there was any point where I felt the Bears were going to win this game. I did feel uncomfortable about how close the Eagles are making it, but I never felt that they were in jeopardy of not winning. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I do. I did. I would say the story of this game was unforced errors. It just beating themselves. They didn't have a lot of penalties. That was good. They only had 2. But this is a game kind of like Washington. Like, you could point to yourself and ask, what's the problem? Well, the timing on offense in the first half between the receivers and Hurts was a little bit off. There's no question it's off. Look, they came out throwing just like we said in pregame. We knew they were going to come out throwing. They did. I mean, don't let the final numbers fool you. That Hurts ran a lot, and I definitely would agree with our subscribers of Patreon on our Discord page. I jumped in there in the fourth quarter. They nailed it. Way too much Hurts today running the football. He took a shot in that game. You got to be careful. I know he scored 3 touchdowns. That's great. You want to have your quarterback. That's what you want. He's there to throw the football in the end. They did. He and by the way, though, in the end, we'll get to the passing game, which had some dynamic moments. That's kind of what saved the game today. They didn't really run the ball very well.
No, they did not run the ball. They were a kind of a shot play offense. I mean, it was the slants and then the sideline strikes that really served as their big plays that got them into the end zone. Trey, did you at any time feel threatened, like the Eagles were not going to win this game?
No, I didn't think that. I wasn't threatened, but it was everything that they had portrayed it to be. You knew that this was going to be a tough game. I knew that they would figure out a way to pull this off. I felt like our defense was getting at the fields. The thing that concerned me is that I just wanted to make sure that Jalen Hurts made it out of this game, because I mean, like you said, he took a lot of hits, and I mean, it started with the first run. His first run, he took a nice little thump, and I'm like, man. And then he came back and had that second run, he got hit again. So they were just a little too much. Because I mean, when you have a zone read offense, when everything is all about him reading, defenses are going to play him for that. You're going to send that defensive end crashing down, and then you have a linebacker or a safety that plays over the top. And that's the same game plan that Tampa Bay used against them in the playoffs a couple years ago.
Right. Yeah, definitely did. And this one obviously being a total different. The biggest difference as far as outside context is they're playing in frigid temperatures. I don't know if that led to some of the special teams issues we saw with kicks, if it was a wind thing or a ball tends to be flatter. Trey, I know you don't pay attention to skill position players, but when you guys played in really frigid temperatures like that, passes flat, is it harder to just get that ball in the air? Even Justin Fields has a strong arm through some balls that just look like ducks at times, and I didn't know if that was weather related.
Well, Soldier Field sits right there on the water,
Yeah.
so that's a tough place to play, especially when it's cold. And 20 degrees in Chicago is a little different. When you wake up that morning and you feel that temperature, and you're like, man, it takes a little while to get going, and that's one of the situations that I felt with this game. It just felt like it took a little while for us to get there, and then just the situations. I mean, you had for Chicago, they're sitting on the 30-yard line, and they say, you know what, we don't want to kick a field goal. No,
I was stunned. Yeah, that was stunning. Maybe after seeing what happened for the rest of the game, maybe that was the right decision. I don't know, but clearly they didn't feel comfortable with it there. All right, we've got a lot to discuss, both offensively, defensively, even some special teams that we just discussed, but and then maybe like a sort of a little bit of a peek ahead, as finally it'll be Dallas week as soon as we all wake up tomorrow, although that game now even a little bit less significant with the Cowboys losing. However, there's still a lot to talk about. We'll get into the offense in a second. I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Obviously, the game started the way it did because of, for the Eagles not being able to move the ball. There were some giveaways that were uncharacteristic. The first interception to me was just I think that's what you referenced, Adam, where there was just Jalen was not throwing with the right type of timing that we've seen. The second one, I think that might have been just as much on Quez Watkins not cutting it, because Jalen threw it to a spot he thought Quez was going to be at.
Right. That he was going vertical and the throw was not. It was shallower. So yeah, that was off. But look, the thing is, these coaches are so aggressive. Obviously, the guy's calling it, Shane Steichen. He didn't care that it was cold. Yeah, that's just 25-mile-an-hour wind. You're throwing the football. This is what these coaches believe. We said this is going to happen this year. They haven't stopped, really, with rare exception. Obviously, the Green Bay game, because Green Bay laid down and decided not to tackle anybody. But they're going to come out throwing the football. And I got to tell you, A.J. Brown's an amazing football player. You do worry about the ball security a little bit, but don't forget Devontae was big time today.
Huge.
2 combined for 14 receptions and 307 yards. My God. Wow.
Yeah, that was sort of amazing. And I would say what was also amazing, Adam and Trey, was that, and I even tweeted this, I can't even remember a game during the Andy Reid era where you're 12 minutes left in the second quarter, and that's the first time the running back gets a carry. It almost seemed like too cute. Like, I get it. You come out passing, you're trying to get ahead, but for no running back, especially with Miles coming off a 144-yard game against a defense that is among the worst against the run, Trey, to not have a running back have a carry till 12 minutes to go in the second quarter, I felt like the Eagles were overdoing it a little bit there.
Yeah, and then again, I'm going to go back to the zone read concepts. Their defense, Chicago was playing them for it. They were, all their reads was for what Jalen was seeing was that defensive end crash. That's his read. When that defensive end crashes, his read is that defensive end, all right, I have to pull the ball. Now, there are a couple of times where you just say, all right, you know what? No matter what the read is, just hand it off. Just go ahead and give it to him. But what Chicago was doing was playing him for it. They said, all right, we're going to crash that defensive end. We're going to have the linebackers come over the top. We're going to make you not hand the ball off so that we can get hits on them.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't it have made sense to hand the ball off anyway in that situation, even though that the edge defender is crashing?
Yeah, well, that's what they started doing towards the end of it. Once he took that big hit, then they were like, all right, you know what? You need to hand that off. We need you to get the ball out of your hands.
Yeah. I did notice, and I think Greg Cosell talked about it on the pregame show, is that even though the Bears defensive front, the front four is not, full of A-plus talent, it seemed like they were trying to do a lot of games, not just with the zone read, but whether it was slanting. I mean, they were getting through the gaps quickly. It seems like they were actually doing a good job of setting the tone against the Eagles running game when they were running. And there were a couple of times I think the offensive line got confused, and we've seen that happen a little bit here and there with the Eagles offensive line. But I credit Matt Eberflus, the Bears head coach. I think he had a plan going into this.
Yeah, and Alan Williams, his D coordinator, the two were in with Indy together.
Yeah,
they definitely had a good game plan. I thought they had that red. In fact, I'd agree with Trey, because we saw last week, by the way, the Eagles ran very few RPOs. It was more of a drop back pass game, which obviously Hurts is very good at that this year, and somewhat of a conventional running game compared to what they had done for a lot of the season. And then they went kind of back to it. And look, I'm okay. If you want to throw the ball out, that's fine because Eagles do it better than most teams. But when you run it, could you give it to Sanders more? You're just asking for trouble with your quarterback.
Trey, and I know they did it a couple of times, but to your point on how they were prepared for the zone read, I mean, there's no law against every once in a while maybe running 2 plays in a row from under center. I mean, I know it's crazy nowadays, but you can do it. You can play a little power football there, can't you?
Yeah, you can, but I mean, that's not this offense. Yeah, come on, man. Everybody wants to see the shotgun. Nobody wants to get under center anymore. You want to see the shotgun.
But they do it every once in a while. I just want to see him like twice in a row.
Sneaks. We get in there and give you a quarterback sneak or whatever. Now, I tell you what, that 2-point play, have you seen that? Where you say, all right, because at first I'm like, all right, when they had Cam go out and they spread him out, all right, then they get the penalty. And then you say, all right, they made Jordan eligible. So then I'm like, okay, wow, we're about to get Jordan Mailata. He's about to get the ball. This is what everybody's waiting for.
Yep.
Big Jordan is about to get the ball. No, what do? They shift the entire offensive line, and then you run a quarterback sneak off. I mean, dude, this offense, what they're doing is just, I mean, they keep coming with these little gadget plays that's very nifty. That's going to make defensive coordinators just stay up all night trying to watch what's coming next.
That's what Adam and I have spent a couple of weeks now talking about on ITB podcasts, Adam, is that this coaching staff is not stale. They're not static. Even on defense, you're starting to see more stunting and twisting than you saw earlier in the year. But that's a kind of a hat tip there to Nick, to Kevin Patullo, the passing game coordinator, the running game coordinator, Jeff Stoutland, obviously the offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen. It's that balance between, you don't want too many cooks, but they're all working in unison really well with this team and making sure that, as Trey said, you're fresh from week to week to week.
You could have 10 guys come out with plays, but you can't have too many guys in the quarterback series. That's the problem. You don't want 5 guys in the quarterback series. You want 2 or 3 at the most. You really only want 2. Mm-hmm. So you got to be careful with that. I know, talking to our friend John DiFilippo, he was very emphatic about that when he got the job in 2016. Do not put a lot of play, because he had Derek Carr as a rookie. He said he did not want a lot of guys in the ear. Now, and then it was Reich. There's only 3 of them in the meeting, but it was John was pretty much in Wentz's ear all the time. And here, it's pretty much Brian Johnson, and the other guys are calling the plays, but Brian Johnson's the day-to-day guy. That's why I think it's working pretty well. But just getting back to what I said a couple minutes ago, last week, it wasn't, let me just kind of rephrase it. It wasn't a conventional running game where the quarterback was under center. It was just less RPO. It was, okay, Hurts is out of a shotgun.
Right.
Go hand it off. Whereas it wasn't really an RPO base. They were on a lot of RPOs the previous week, but this week they're back to it. I just, again, my one issue, and I haven't had many with this staff because they're so good on offense. We're okay with running the football with Hurts. That's okay. You got to pick and choose your spots. But when he's getting more carries than Miles Sanders, I got a problem with that. You're just asking for trouble. And as Trey said very well, he got hit too many times today. You can't have him not be available. You want to go back to getting Sanders the ball more. That's got to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this in 2017. They definitely won the Super Bowl, but I don't think that they wanted to lose Carson Wentz to injury and then have to go fight to win that Super Bowl with Nick Foles. And as we get closer to the end of the year, games get colder, right? Injuries start to happen. And I agree with you. In fact, this is probably the only time this year, I'll check it, but it's got to be the only time this year the Eagles have won a game despite losing time of possession. That's kind of how herky-jerky their offense was. That the Bears, of all teams, they have one weapon. He's the quarterback.
Really?
And then he lost a wide receiver in the middle of the game, his second best wide receiver, or no, I guess at that point, Equanimeous St. Brown, you could consider maybe their best wide receiver. He goes out of the game, and yet the Bears still control the offense 30 minutes to 20. I mean, it was very close, 30-07 to 29-53, but usually for the Eagles, it's not that close. I'm curious sort of on the philosophy, Trey. It seemed like the Eagles really wanted to attack the Bears at the edges with a couple of reverses or swing passes to Quez Watkins or Devontae Smith, or even having Jalen go off tackle. It really was not an area they were able to profit and make a lot of yards, but they kept going to the point where when you're trying to run the clock out, there's about 2 minutes and 20 seconds left. they ran a reverse to Quez, and I thought he was going to accidentally get out of bounds. I was a little curious on that strategy there and that play calling. Just watching the Bears defense, is there anything that you saw that you thought maybe that was an area to exploit for them?
No, I would have much rather gotten north and south. Instead of you trying to get these little gadget plays where you want to get those little jet sweeps, and you're trying to get Quez out there, because now, because you're going to send a receiver up there to go block one of the corners and safeties, and then now you putting Quez one-on-one with one of those guys. But they made a good open field tackle. I get why you're trying to do it, but I would much rather get north and south.
Yeah. All right, putting a bow on the offense, I just got to say, A.J. Brown is everything the Eagles wanted and more. He really is. He's not perfect. He'll not catch a pass every once in a while, but when they needed a slant to A.J. Brown, they dialed up a slant to A.J. Brown. They profited from a slant to A.J. Brown. That's just how good he was.
I was waiting for those bang play action plays, which the Titans ran like crazy last season. We haven't seen a lot of them, but in this game they did, because there were voids in that zone. And I love – one of the things I really admire about Steichen, he's super matchup based.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they have pro advanced. They give them the tendencies, and they have all the analytics, and they know what the tape looks like from their pro advanced people, and they went after it. And I love that Devontae Smith, since Goddard's been out, has been a major factor. When Goddard gets back, they can't just go away from Devontae. I get it. Goddard's a game changer. We all know that. So A.J. Brown. But don't forget about Devontae, and that's one thing I think the coaches have to remind themselves, because one of the things that Devontae's done, and I know he can do it, he wins physical routes. He's starting to win those routes downfield. You weren't sure the 50-50s. Some of those he's absolutely winning against some guys who are actually way more than he does.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I thought he was great today. He made a lot of tough catches. He was able to turn up field on a couple. You're right. You can't forget this guy in the offense when Dallas Goedert comes back. And real quick, we talked about it in the ITV pregame show. I think we're going to be right about it too. This Bears secondary, they came to play. They can get their hands on balls. They're talented. Jaquan Brisker made what at the time what looked like a touchdown saving tackle on that A.J. Brown A.J. Brown sideline route. Jalen Johnson broke up a lot of nice passes. The rookie Kyler Gordon played really well. They're pretty set. They just need a few guys in the front seven, and they're going to be a pretty nasty monsters of the midway defense again fairly soon if they get that's good offensive play.
They need talent up front, because you can't keep asking your corners to hold up. They made some plays, as you said today. They gave up a ton of plays, too many deep shots. It's really remarkable. I love how Steichen's like, we're gonna beat them downfield. We're not gonna stop doing it. Right. It was like this against the Giants in rain. They don't care, these coaches. Unless there's severe wind, they're gonna throw the football. It's just what they do.
All right, we're going to go on to the Eagles defense. A couple of individual plays that stand out, and of course, team defense as well. First, we're going to take a break to hear from our good friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. Of course, you can stop and see them in Westchester, PA, and make sure if you do, you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. Heck, tell them Trey sent you too. You'll get the very best deal. That's our friends at Sky Motor Cars. Defense. So it's pretty simple. Like, we've known this for a while, but I think today kind of demonstrates it even more. You're not going to beat the Eagles if you don't have a great offensive line. And if you have a really porous offensive line, it's going to be even worse. I mean, the Bears were even lucky to be within 5, the way Justin Fields was getting ransacked at times. I mean, Trey, this pass rush has just come alive. 6 or more sacks now in 3 straight games, 6 more today, 55. Man. That's number that leads the NFL, and it might be the most now in team history through 14 games. They were at second most through 13. I'll have to go back and check. But, I mean, they're hitting you from every angle.
Yeah, they're right now, man. I mean, they're really out there. I mean, Hassan Reddick is just an animal out there. I mean, you know, at first, when I started watching him, because I really, you know, once he got here to the Eagles, that's when I really started paying attention to his style of rush. And, and a lot of people were talking about his size, but it plays into his advantage, especially as a tackle. When you have a defensive end that can flash hands, but then can get low and bend the corner, I mean, it makes it extremely difficult. And you can see he was working these tackles. I mean, just flashing hands, button go, and just taking off. And he bends like no one else out there on that field. And and now the way Sweat has been coming on, his game is, and even just all of them across the board. They beat him with games. You beat him with stunts. You beat him with TEs. You beat him with an ET game. Sweat was just all over the place. Hargrave as a defensive tackle having double-digit sacks. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. These guys are getting after it.
Yeah, Adam, you too. We talked to people in the first 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season when the Eagles were okay, they had that one huge game against Washington, but they had a couple of 1-sack game, 2-sack games, and a lot of the feedback we would get, and Trey, I'll get you on this too, is that it didn't sort of make sense with the athleticism they have up front, that they didn't run a whole lot of games. They were a little bit more static, but over the last 4 or 5 weeks, as we've been talking about a lot, you're seeing a lot more games. They're not heavy. It's just they do it selectively. They do it at the right time. But the fact is, they're doing it when they weren't doing it in the past. I don't know what took Jonathan Gannon so long to sort of get on to the fact that a guy like Reddick is someone you should be moving all around.
He is Reddick is almost unstoppable on stunts. He's so quick. His second reaction, you saw it. Now the backbreaker run that Fields had, he actually, remember, he almost forced Colin.
Yeah,
that was I think that was the one where he had a second reaction rush. He beat the tackle. He went to the ground and got up and nearly got him. He's relentless. I've not seen anyone this kind of speed as an edge rusher for the Eagles, and I maybe ever. It just it's hard to find guys like this. He what a great story he's been, and Sweaty was amazing. Oh boy, that first sack was. Who did he get Riley? Who did he get?
I got to ask you this. Maybe you know more than me. Why in the world was Eberflus or whoever the offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, the offensive line coach maybe made the decision? Why are they putting Alex Leatherwood in there just to get his feet wet in the middle of a game that they're trying to win?
Well, remember, Tevin Jenkins got hurt.
Oh, yeah. He was playing guard, right?
Right.
Did they move Rife to guard?
No, they shifted their line a little bit. I don't have all the changes.
Okay.
But Riley Reif went in. He got abused. Because it's funny, I keep looking, who are these numbers? Who are these guys?
Yeah. Eventually they had to put Reif back out to right tackle and get Leatherwood off the field because he was
terrible.
Abused.
It was something else to watch that. Now, the second half, one of the things, and I've seen this with Kansas City, who, by the way, won in overtime today.
Yep.
But their game was different. But they've had games like this, and Trey could attest to this. It's sometimes hard when you sometimes play down to your level of competition. Andy Reid had this issue here in Philly. The Eagles would be a huge favorite against a bad team. Now, it didn't necessarily have to mean that they were playing a great team the next week. For some reason, they just didn't have it together in the second half. Just kind of an uneven game. It was kind of like 3 or 4 games inside a game. Right when you think they're going to blow this team out, they turn it over.
Yeah, I thought the defense though was a little bit more up for it and consistent than I think. I agree with you on the offensive end. The Byron Pringle touchdown at the end. I don't want to excuse Slay, but I was as soon as Fields threw it, I thought that they were going to throw a flag for him being past the line of scrimmage. Now he was not, but he was running there for quite a while before he threw that ball. So I guess I can understand if a corner you don't exactly see it and you thought maybe you're coming up to try to tackle him thinking he's past the line of scrimmage on that.
Yeah.
Did you feel the same way?
Might have been.
Okay.
By the way, Wallace did start as we expected, and they played him in the box a lot. That's why he had a ton of tackles today, although their run defense was kind of shaky at times. But overall, no, I would just say they had a couple defensive lapses. Mostly the defense was terrific. But I guess, again, my point was that it's really hard. They were so dominant at times on defense in the first half. It's just hard to do that for 4 quarters.
Right.
But that's the only thing I would add.
Yeah, there you go. Trey, how do you feel like the team will talk about this game in the locker room? Just win's a win, or?
Of course, this is a different team. This is every time you hear these guys talking, especially with Jalen Hurts, he's the leader of the group. That's going every time they come out of a game, no matter what it is, especially a game like this. You think that they're going to be, oh yeah, a win is a win. No, they're going to go in and say, all right, you know what? There's a lot that we have to get corrected because they know that they haven't played their best ball yet. Even though you come out of here, you had 300 yards, but you threw 2 interceptions. You didn't have the run game that you thought that you needed to have. You took too many hits. So I think that this group really does a lot of self-evaluation. And we'll go back and say, all right, you know what? We have to do better. If our goal is to get into the playoffs and make it to the Super Bowl and win, then we have to continue to critique ourselves and take that and make the right corrections so that we can be successful.
You know what? It's really interesting. As I think about it, in 2017, I think it was a game against the Bears here in Philadelphia that the Eagles won convincingly, but turned the ball over about 3 times. And that was the message after the game. They were all very disappointed. I'll go back and look, and we'll talk about it on the Wednesday morning podcast. But I'm almost positive that was the game where, even though they won convincingly, they had a bunch of unforced errors, stupid mistakes, penalties, and the entire team said, we got to do better than that or we're going to lose. And then it was either 1 or 2 games later that they did lose to the Seattle Seahawks. But then, of course, they snapped back to form, rest and go to win a Super Bowl. So I do agree. I think this team is like that. They don't get too high, they don't get too low, but they will zero in when they have a game that they know they could have done better at. Mm-hmm. I want to highlight a specific play that I would almost call the turning point of the game. I thought it was a really important play and get both of your guys' thoughts on it. It was at the time in the third quarter, the Eagles were still only up 4 and really struggling to put this thing away. The Bears had a 3rd and 10. They threw a pretty nice, well-developed screen to Cole Kmet, who would have had a lot of yards, a first down, definitely, and maybe, I don't know how it looked from the all-22, maybe even a big play to a touchdown if TJ Edwards did not fight through a lot of traffic and make a tackle. And in a game like this, that's close on the road, elements, I thought that was enormous. Do you guys remember that play?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
The Trey, to see TJ Edwards, he fought through the traffic and sort of drug him down from behind 3 yards short of the first down. That to me was probably the most significant play of the game that allowed everything else to unfold after that and the Eagles to go back up.
Yeah, TJ Edwards has just been, he's just been playing out of his mind as well. I mean, you have a lot of guys that's on this team that's just been on a whole nother level than what everybody was expecting. I mean, TJ Edwards has definitely been the linebacker that we've been looking for years.
Definitely. And Adam, that play was really significant also because the Bears had just gotten the ball back after the Eagles went for it on 4th down. The pass to A.J. Brown was broken up. So now you've got Chicago back with the ball on the Eagles side of the field. And if that plays a first down, if Kmet gets first down or even more, who knows what happens after that? I mean, Fields could break one. That could be a touchdown. Man, that run Fields had that was almost a touchdown was about one of the more amazing runs I've seen by a quarterback before.
It was, of course, I thought he scored. We're talking about the one in the first half. It looked like he scored until we saw the replay. Went out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, they needed it. Yeah, there's no question. The second half, they were just lulls. It's impossible to play great every game and be great for all 4 quarters. They'll learn from it.
Right.
By the way, they didn't cover and the game went under the total. It's just funny how that worked. It looked like
we all picked the cover and the over.
I know, enough fun. I thought we should mention that. Look, we pick the Eagles just about every week, and now that Dallas has lost, the Eagles, I gotta think they'll be a favorite next week. Have we seen the early line on that? I would think they'd be a small favorite.
I thought the line this early this week was that Dallas was favorite. Now I don't count the way early. I count the line that comes out, after the Sunday games are done, Monday night games are done. But I would have to agree with you. I would think the Eagles would be favored. Now the question is, Trey and Adam, they're 13-1, right? So there's 3 games left. Dallas is 10-4. So even if the Eagles went 13-4 and Dallas went 13-4, the Eagles, would they win? That would imply the Eagles losing to the Cowboys next week, though, and then head-to-head it would be the same record. So there's still impetus to go and win this game in Dallas. And I would think that they're traveling down there with one objective, and that's just to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that this team, they want to win. They want to win. I don't think this is a team that says, all right, you know what, hey, man, we're going to get into the playoffs. Let's just, take our foot off the gas because like you said, they haven't played their best football yet. And this team, there's still too many mistakes that's being made. So I think that this group here is all about, hey, man, we got to keep striving and so that we can get into the playoffs and you hit full stride. Because what you don't want to do and start taking your foot off the gas. Now, you mess around, that switch is hard to flip. That whole, hey, we could just flip the switch, wake up and flip the switch. All right, that's not something that you want to do. You want to keep that momentum. You want to keep that drive and keep making corrections so that when you get into the playoffs, you're full stride.
Absolutely. Now, Adam, I believe the Eagles will have a chance to clinch the number 1 seed and home division next week. If they beat the Cowboys, right, they'll be 14-1. Even if the Vikings win, they'll be 12-3. So
and the Eagles have the tiebreaker.
No, there'll be 3 games left. So I don't think they can do it.
Well, they have the tiebreaker over Minnesota because they beat them.
Right, but they're still just up 2 games.
Up 2, right.
Now, if the Eagles win and the Vikings lose,
they win it. Yeah, absolutely.
They have a chance to clinch the number 1
it's over.
seed.
Yeah, it will be over.
Then it's over. So there's a lot to play for next week. It's going to be great. Look forward to previewing that game all week. Go ahead.
Eagles are getting +1. I can't believe they'd be an underdog. I can't believe it.
That's going to change.
Sure, they'd be a favorite.
I guarantee you that
1.5. Wow, even after today, this is current as I look now. That's surprising to me.
Yeah. Last thing, special teams. Boston Scott, another big kickoff return. He's now had a 66-yard return and a 58-yard return. It's amazing how the little things, right, make such a difference. You call up Christian Ellis for 3 straight weeks, you've had pretty good kickoff coverage. You get Boston Scott returning your kicks, all of a sudden now you got way better field position. You get a punter, a 2-time Pro Bowl punter who you elevate from the practice squad. He didn't do anything wrong. I guess that's all. That's what we can say about Brett Kern. I think he had one decent punt in the game. So everything all of a sudden, he did.
He didn't drop kick it.
No, he did not drop kick it. Nor did he have it fumbled or kicking it into anybody else. So that was good.
Exactly.
So another clean game, other than the missed. What was it, the PAT from Jake Elliott? Which I think the process was fine on that. I think he just missed it.
Just a win.
Yeah. But Boston Scott, that return, did you see how much room he had?
Mm-hmm.
They were really blocking much better for it. They had 2 bad coverages. They had 1 bad punt.
Right.
And they also had 1 bad kick. So that reared its ugly head again.
That did rear its ugly head. And now they are out of elevations for Christian Ellis. So we will see over the next 3 weeks or so what their decision is to try to continue to have a good special teams body now. Will they sign him to the 53? Will they just elevate somebody else for special teams? We'll have to see what the Eagles do in that regard.
I have one thing. I don't know. I get that Ian Book's good for scout team to give the look team something different when you face a guy who's athletic. But do you think, I guess they must be worried about cutting him, that someone could claim him. Because he does have value. I do understand that part of it. Maybe there's some team that would like him out there, but because they're at a situation now when Goddard comes back. Now I think they have a spot open, right? Because the punter Kern was elevated, not signed off the practice.
I don't think, because they had all 6 players inactive today, so I think they're at 53.
Oh, okay. I
thought they had a spot open too, but then when I saw the inactives come out, I saw it was 6 players, right? So so they are probably going to have to make a corresponding move when Dallas Goedert back on the roster.
We'll look into that.
It could be Tyree Jackson, it could be Ian Book, it could be.
He had a bad hold. He had a bad hold. It's not the first bad penalty he's had. There was really no reason for him to do what he did there.
I agree.
It was way overzealous with the hold. He did a couple things wrong in that play. He's a guy's got to learn, from what it's like to block as a former quarterback. But overall, I think they'll learn. There's a lot of bad tape, and coaches will say that. There's a lot of mistakes in this game. So a lot of corrections to make, which is not the worst thing. All correctable, and then move on.
We'll make corrections too here at ITB and see what we can do better as we continue to bring to you this fantastic Eagles season. We'll be back on Wednesday morning with the Inside the Birds podcast. Tuesday, look out for a Q&A. Quentin, Michael, Jason Avant will have their weekly podcast drop on the Inside the Birds platform. It's going to be a great week. It always is when the Eagles have Dallas to play, and especially when you have a chance to clinch the number 1 seed, which they may have on the line. So it'll be a fun week. I look forward to it. And that'll be the end. That'll be it for this Inside the Birds postgame live for my friend right there, Trey Thomas, looking good. For my friend Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. We thank you for watching Inside the Birds postgame live.